Headline on Yahoo Finance, for instance. Coronavirus wipes out all jobs created in the 11 years. Again, I'll say it. Coronavirus wipes out all jobs created in the last 11 years. So I guess that means since 2009, all the jobs that were created since the financial crisis are now gone. That's the top headline on Yahoo Finance. Obviously, that headline is not correct. Again, 22 million people now have filed for unemployment. That's horrible. That's tragic. But what's more tragic, or just as tragic, is that these headlines continue creating hysteria for no reason. You don't want the hysterical to become historical. So you don't want to pay attention to these headlines because they're constantly trying to rile you up and panic you and make you nervous and make you upset. So is it true that we just saw another 5 million people file for unemployment? Is it true that coronavirus has wiped out all jobs created in the last 11 years? And the answer is totally no. For one thing, because of the new rules in the stimulus package, part of these jobs that have recently been applying for unemployment, there are part-time workers in that list, there are self-employed workers there in that list, and there are furloughed workers. So furloughed workers, they have been laid off, they aren't making money, they are applying for unemployment, but they're furloughed because when their businesses that they work for come back to business, when the economy reopens, these people, at least a good chunk of these people, will have jobs again. So out of these 22 million people who are unemployed, we don't really know who is still making money as a part-time worker, who is still making money as self-employed. I know many people who have applied for unemployment because they're allowed to, even though they're making their full-time salary still, because they're self-employed. And what percentage of these new unemployed people are furloughed, meaning in a few weeks they're going to have their job back, but because the stimulus package wants people to have money now so that they could reinvigorate anybody who has extra money is going to spend the extra money, so that will reinvigorate the economy. It'll bring back demand once the economy reopens, if it opens soon enough. All these people are going to be back at work, or all these people currently have jobs. So it's not, again, the top headline on Yahoo Finance, coronavirus wipes out all jobs created in the last 11 years. It's just not true. Okay, now here's funny. Here's the second headline on Yahoo Finance. 349 billion COVID-19 small biz loan program is out of money. Oh my gosh, it's out of money. I forgot to apply. True or false? It's false. The Federal Reserve announced almost immediately that they would continue the program by giving banks the money just straight from the Federal Reserve to continue the loans. So again, the first two headlines on Yahoo Finance are just wrong. And look, I like Yahoo Finance. I check it out. I check out to see how my stocks are doing. They're all down today, whatever. But why is it the case that the first two headlines, and they're really important headlines, they're headlines that involve you and me and our daily lives and what kind of help the government's providing for us and what kind of hope we can look forward to, and they're just false. They're just trying to create hysteria. Don't let the hysterical become the historical. It's not the case, opposite of this headline, it's not the case that coronavirus has wiped out all the jobs created in the past 11 years, and the small business loan program has not run out of money. It technically ran out of money, and then instantly the Federal Reserve came in and said, don't worry about it, we're going to keep on giving you loans. So it just bothers me that all of these, so someone says, how can they, so Lane, how are you doing? It says, what the hell, how can they spout that garbage? They do it every single day. They want you to be hysterical, and they don't care about their jobs are safe. They're the media, they're working for Yahoo Finance. They have new stuff to do every day. As long as they can keep you unhappy and panicking every single day, they'll keep their paycheck. So they don't really care about the rest. And by the way, I don't blame them. That's their job. It's just that many people, millions and millions of people, look at this page as their front page. People always say, well, James, if you don't read the news, how are you going to stay informed? And believe me, I don't need to read that article, the top article on Yahoo Finance, to get informed. In fact, I'll be uninformed if I read the article. By the way, I don't click on the article. I just see the headline and I already know right away it's going to be BS. So the best way to be informed is to get a little bit more educated about the areas of life that you're interested in. Or if you don't want to do that, find a reliable source of information. So for instance, coming on this IG Live, I can tell you if that headline is accurate or not. Let me see who wrote it, because I used to write for Yahoo Finance. I know all these people. So it's just, yeah, they don't mention it all. They do not mention at all. I'm looking at the article now, just scanning it. They don't mention at all the fact that this list of unemployed workers includes people who are self-employed, part-time, and furloughed. So it doesn't mean anything. It's meaningless. I know this because I'm more informed because this is what I did for a living for many years. I was an investor, so I was always dealing with economic news like this, and I was always going on CNBC, and I was writing books about this kind of thing. So with just a little bit of research and knowing the right information sources for me, I'm able to get information that's much more reliable and accurate than these hysterical headlines on Yahoo Finance. Again, for anybody just arriving, and I'll move on beyond this real quickly. The first two headlines on Yahoo Finance is coronavirus wipes out all jobs created in the last 11 years, and the $349 billion small biz program has run out of money. Both headlines completely false. So, and then here's the next headline. Jeff Bezos quotes Dr. Seuss in shareholder letter amid virus. Are you kidding me? Why is that a headline? Who cares? Here's some things about Dr. Seuss. So who cares that Jeff Bezos quoted Dr. Seuss? First off, Dr. Seuss, very interesting guy. His original name is Ted Geisel. And Ted Geisel was looking at, he was in advertising. He was middle-aged and working for an ad agency. And he was a good ad agency guy. He would have made money, decent money, working in the ad business. But he was looking at these kids' books, and they were all these Dick and Jane books. So like, Dick runs with Jane, Dick picks up the ball, Dick throws the ball to Jane. And he's like, oh my God, these kids' books are completely boring. What kid is going to learn how to read, reading the most boring books in the world? So he took the same set of vocabulary words, basically about 230 words, and he wrote the books like The Cat in the Hat. And he showed that kids' books could be fun. And then he even reduced the vocabulary more, and he wrote Green Eggs and Ham, so even younger kids can read it and learn. And so with just one little tweak of thinking about children's books, he ended up selling 100 million copies of his books. And he became Dr. Seuss, one of the most famous writers of all time. And he did it with just a few hundred words, and he had a particular rhyme scheme that he always stuck with. And it wasn't like he was the most talented writer in the world. It wasn't that he was the most talented poet in the world. It wasn't that he understood kids. He didn't even have any kids for himself, and he wasn't an expert on kids' education. He just had the common sense to say, and we're talking about Ted Geisel, Dr. Seuss. He had the common sense to say, you know what, I could take the same simple words and make it fun and make it rhyme. Might not be the best writer, not the best rhymer, not the best with kids, but I'm pretty good at all. And the combination of it, he left the ad agency business, sold hundreds of millions of copies of his books, and became Dr. Seuss, the man we all know and love. By the way, he also cheated on his wife with his next door neighbor. His wife killed herself. She was so upset. And Dr. Seuss, Ted Geisel, married the neighbor. So again, there's two sides to every story. But yes, he's one of the best-selling writers of all time. He skipped the line. He didn't need to write 7 failed novels in order to finally have success with a novel. He skipped the line by doing idea sex. He combined his thoughts on education with his thoughts on how rhyming could make a kid's book fun, and boom, he's the most successful children's writer in history. So, Jay, send me the latest link. I don't have it. I don't know where it is, and I will start answering some questions. But wanted to talk about some other stuff too, And I'm kind of tired of coronavirus. Like, I wrote a tweet last night that people got more excited about it than I thought. I even got messages about it and people asking me questions. I wrote that basically, this is not true for everybody, and it's not a clean divided line, but I wrote that most of the people who seem to be some people are getting really angry. If you suggest opening up the economy, some people get really angry, like, oh, are you comparing the economy with trying to say economy is worth more than deaths? And of course not. But I noticed that the people getting the most angry about it, they have one thing in common. They currently have a paycheck. They're either rich, or they work in the media, like they're writing these Yahoo Finance headlines, or they work in academia, so they aren't getting fired even though they send all the students home. So, but they're all getting a paycheck. That 22 million people now, or whatever, who don't have a steady paycheck or are nervous about their paychecks, they want to reopen the economy. They're the ones suffering. More and more evidence is coming out that there are collateral fatalities. People are not getting treated for other illnesses. There's mental health issues like, I just read calls to a child abuse hotline in the Bronx are 6 times higher than normal every single day. So again, I just find it interesting that everyone who's like really angry at me about, if I even suggest, oh, maybe we should start to reopen the economy, forget about their argument. One thing I noticed, they could just say, hey, I have a paycheck, so I disagree with you. That's all they need to say to me. Because that's what the common theme is that they have a paycheck, and the people who want the economy open the most are struggling and are sad and are stressed and are scared about feeding their family. They don't have a paycheck. So everybody needs to just settle down. The goal of flattening the curve, unless they were lying, the goal of flattening the curve was to not overwhelm the healthcare system. That was it. That was the entire reason for shutting down the economy. It wasn't so that deaths would be zero. There's always, in the United States, every week, there's 7,500 deaths or 8,000 deaths anyway from just normal activity. And it's hard to quantify deaths like this. Deaths aren't a part of a math formula. But there's 8,000 deaths a week anyway from just normal BS or whatever. Or maybe that's not a week, that's a day. Every day there are 8,000 deaths from other reasons other than, coronavirus. We don't shut down the economy for cancer or for heart disease or for car accidents. We get the economy going and we provide the resources to help people where we can. Now, compared to 6 weeks ago when we started shutting down the economy, we know so much more. We know that this pandemic, and I've been saying this since the first IG Live, we know that this pandemic lasts, about 6 to 8 weeks from when it really flares up. And I predicted around March 10th, when we did one of these first IG Lives, April 15th, give or take, would be about the peak. And we've probably already passed the peak in New York City, and we're talking about reopening the economy. So let's see what happens. But, another thing that happened in the economic data is someone asked, do I think Trump should have acted sooner or quicker? I don't really know the answer. That's such a great question, and it's an unknown. Because who was acting faster? Like, nobody in Europe was acting. I was in the Netherlands the day before Trump put on a travel ban on Europe and started shutting things down. I can tell you, nobody was even thinking about it in the Netherlands. I don't even think in all of Europe anybody was thinking about it. I would ask audiences, are you thinking about coronavirus? And they would just say, nah. Nobody was thinking about it. So I don't know how Trump could have acted sooner. I mean, he did, we just have what he says, but he did put that ban on travel on China, but I don't really know. You can also ask, could governors have started acting sooner when they started noticing cases in their states? Don't forget, Trump only issued guidelines. It requires the governors to actually make the rules for the shutdown. So some states haven't even fully shut down, but I'm in New York State, it's a complete shutdown. California was a complete shutdown. So I think blaming is not going to help. We could blame Cuomo for not shutting down New York earlier. We could blame Trump. We could blame, how come the stimulus package didn't get passed faster? Is it the Democrats? Is it the Republicans? Stop blaming. But we need to figure out how to come up with policy in the future so we don't ruin tens of millions of people's lives every time there's a crisis. We shouldn't shut down the economy every time there's a crisis. That's nonsense. We need to figure out a middle ground, kind of like Sweden that didn't shut their economy at all, or Taiwan that didn't shut their economy at all, or South Korea that didn't shut their economy at all. There's some middle ground between shutting it down and total herd immunity, somewhere in the middle. That probably is the correct policy. Also, we have more data about potential cures. By the way, don't really count on a vaccine. Why should there be a vaccine that's created for this coronavirus? The common cold is a coronavirus. They've been trying for 50 years to make a vaccine for the common cold. There is no vaccine for the common cold. So don't wait for a vaccine to be made for this coronavirus. Instead, look for cures that will ease symptoms. Because the only people that die from this, mostly 99.9% of the deaths in the US are with people above the age of 64. So if we can come up with medicines that people above the age of 64 can use to alleviate their symptoms before they get into serious lung damage, then that will that will reduce the death rate and the ventilator rate so much, it'll be as if this virus doesn't exist. You don't need a vaccine to give to 300 million people. Just figure out how to alleviate symptoms on people above the age of 64, and then, boom, this virus will never even be in the news again. So that's it. That's the solution to the whole thing. And they're doing 30 different trials on potential cures. So this is not going. Maybe we'll have a second wave. There's already headlines now. Second wave coming, which is bullshit because we're still in the first wave. But there's going to eventually be a second wave or another season or whatever. But if we have medicine that gets rid of symptoms in people over the age of 64, then you no longer have a virus that people think about. Again, in the United States, for all of the cases under the age of 64, only 0.1%, all of the deaths, only 0.1% are under the age of 64. So it's really only severely affecting people above the age of 64. Doesn't mean I want to get this virus. I don't want to get the virus. I'm not taking it, superficially, but we're going to come up with medicine that helps people above the age of 64 deal with symptoms before they get the severe lung damage that is killing them. So again, that's what I'm looking for. I don't care about a vaccine. I'm not anti-vax, but nobody wants to have another needle shot just to protect themselves against something that's not going to hurt them. Let's just find out, what's the equivalent of Tylenol for a coronavirus. We're going to discover it within the next few months or a year. We've already probably discovered it, and 30 different companies are testing their own versions of drugs. Let's see what works. Something's going to work, and that's going to completely motivate how we deal with future situations like this. Now, Jay, where is... Oh, I want to mention also. So again, I was just reading off the top headlines on Yahoo, and you see how they try to scare you, because that's how they make money, that's how they get page views, that's how they get clicks. I much prefer getting my information from Cosmopolitan magazine. Have you ever actually picked up Cosmopolitan magazine? It's a woman's magazine. It's a woman's fashion magazine. Their headlines are so much better. Like, what's the top headline? What your Venus sign says about your relationships. Boom. I'd much rather read about that than read about some lie about how this $350 billion small business loan program is out of money, which is a total lie and just intended to scare people. So here's the Cosmopolitan articles, the top trending articles. What your Venus sign says about your relationships. Color magic turned my apartment into my therapist. Here's their most popular op-eds. Please stop shaming me for wearing makeup. Great idea for an article. 33 sad movies for when you need a good cry. 30 workout songs to motivate your next gym session. They don't give a shit. All the gyms are closed. They don't care. Here's 30 workout songs to motivate your next gym session. Guys, Casablanca still slaps. Oh, that's a great title. The best new comedies coming out in 2020. These are all 20 mind-blowing puzzles that'll test your nerves. I'd much rather read that article in Cosmopolitan magazine than read some story that's all lies on the cover of Yahoo Finance. Oh, but here, the true story behind Mrs. America. I need to see that. 8 sex podcasts to download because, hi, we're horny now. Boom. Thanks to COVID-19, I got down at a digital orgy. These are great Cosmopolitan magazine articles. I'm going to start subscribing to this magazine. What's another one? Here's their one op-ed article that mentions COVID-19. The title is COVID-19 is killing black people. Just a very straightforward title. I don't know if that's true or not, but they get right into it. They don't say African American. They're not very PC. And Cosmopolitan is just straightforward, tells it how it is, and it doesn't tell all these lying things like, oh, all the jobs since some obscure date in 2009 have been wiped out. Let's see what else we got here. Here's the deal with Demi Lovato's new boyfriend. I might want to read about that. Britney Spears just called out her breakup with Justin Timberlake. That's still news 20 years after they broke up. Prince Harry chats about family time with Archie. Archie's first birthday party. Boom. This is all so many amazing articles in Cosmopolitan, but no truthful articles in Yahoo Finance. That's upside down, I feel, from what it should be, but what do I know? What do I know? Here's the other thing. I'm gonna have coffee. Jay, have you sent me any questions? By the way, here's how depraved social media is. So when did we start calling it social media? Originally, it was social networking. Like, remember that movie, The Social Network? We never really call Facebook or Twitter social networks anymore. It's all social media. So when I think of media, I think of like Yahoo Finance or CNN or Cosmopolitan. It's like one information source that's just on a speaker, on like a loud horn, just blowing their crap to everybody else. It's one to many. Social networks was, oh, you were my friend in 3rd grade. Now we can be friends again. Like, I was making and remaking friends on social networks. And that's what I thought social networks were supposed to be for. Social media is like, here's what Trump said. Here's what Nancy Pelosi said. Boom, boom, boom. And then everybody divides up in their opinion ghettos and they start arguing with each other. Do you know how much value you add to society when you argue with someone on Twitter? You add 0 value to society, but Twitter makes another penny because you reload. Oh, somebody replied to my argument. Reload. Oh, it's KY Jelly 536X just replied to my argument and he called me an idiot. I'm going to respond. Twitter's the only one who makes money there. You're not going to change KY Jelly XYZ's opinion about whatever you're arguing about. He's an anonymous troll who's arguing with you on Twitter. What? And yet we're in these opinion ghettos now and we're just arguing with these nameless anonymous people. We've completely forgotten about 10 years ago. Oh my gosh, Facebook. I can connect with all my friends. It's a social network. I can network. It's now all media. And so it's funny. I Googled the words friend request. That's what it used to be about. I can request friends. So that seems like a nice thing. But if you Google, try it right now. If you Google friend request, the very first result was friend request. The first result, German supernatural psychological horror film. So apparently there's a German psychological supernatural horror film that is called Friend Request. And that is now the first response on Google when you type in the words friend request. It's no longer about making friends on social networks. That doesn't exist anymore. We've got all our friends. Networks have turned into media. We're getting broadcasted just BS opinions. And that's all we're responding to on social networks now. So it's just It's just annoying. And, you know, what I get these emails every day. I don't know if you get these emails. So there was a social network from like 20 years ago, classmates.com, and they never really succeeded. But I signed up for them in like 2001, and I still get emails from them. Like, and the emails would be like, James, do you remember this face from high school? And why are you sending me this email? I'm friends on Facebook already with all the high school friends I care to be friends with. And I can't even remember what I ate for breakfast this morning. I don't even know if today is Friday or 2023. Like, I'm not going to remember some random face from my yearbook on classmates.com. So everybody's sending these emails because they're losing all their revenues, but classmates.com should probably go out of business. I can't help it. Anyway, Jay, have you sent me questions? And then I have some advice on how to be productive during a time like this. What happens to sports journalists in the current time? That's a great question. So, and I don't know the answer because I don't really follow sports. But, you know, sports I feel has three categories of articles. Like, if I was going to write about sports right now, it might be the case you can look at events in sports history and really learn from them. So, for instance, I was just randomly, I always wondered, what happened to Pele? Do you remember Pele? When I was in the 70s, Pele was like this god of soccer. He played for I grew up in New Jersey. He played for the New Jersey Cosmos soccer team. But he was the best Brazilian, maybe he's the best soccer player in history. And I didn't realize he didn't start playing soccer until he was 15 years old, which is kind of old for like someone who's going to end up being the best in history. And it turned out he played this game when he was very poor. His family was very poor, and so he couldn't really afford to play on there wasn't really a big soccer field in his neighborhood. He lived in a very poor kind of ghetto neighborhood, and there wasn't soccer balls around. So he played this game called futsal, Futsal, which was like a rock in a sock that the kids would all kick around. And so it was much more about manipulating the ball with the feet and a lot of fast passing. And he even stated, when I switched to soccer, it was so much easier because I had already built up all these incredible skills at futsal. And he used to play in his bare feet. So he used to play in his bare feet so that once he started playing with sneakers on a field instead of a street, that also became a lot easier. So it was an interesting thing. You can write a sports article now about the most amazing soccer player in history and how he really built up his skills. And that gives clues to how you can build up your skills in whatever it is you're interested in. So I don't know what the equivalent is. Imagine, I don't know. But it's just interesting. Like, if I was writing about sports now, I would look at all these great sports heroes and how they really got better. Or I would analyze, like, how did, in the NFL, the Green Bay Packers won the first 2 Super Bowls. What did the Jets do in 1969 so that Joe Namath, could lead the Jets to the first non-Green Bay Packers Super Bowl win? So what happened? There's a lot of interesting historical stories in sports that people no longer focus on because there's new games every week. And it just might be interesting to study those. I don't know. So that's me on sports. I don't know anything about sports. Hey, Jarek Robbins, how's it going? I hope you're doing well. Tell your dad I said hi, but looking forward to our next time hanging out. Always good stuff from Jarek Robbins. Here's a good question. Homeschooling tips. So I think back on things like math. Okay, when in your life have you actually used most of math? So by the time you were in 4th or 5th grade, I'm going to talk about homeschooling in general, but this is kind of interesting. How much math do you use as an adult? So you use addition, you use subtraction, you use a little bit of multiplication and percentages to figure out tips in restaurants, and that's kind of it. Like, you don't ever I have never once in my life used trigonometry or geometry. Never. I have never used the Pythagorean theorem. I have never said to myself, there's an edge there, and there's an edge there. What's the length of this edge? Oh, now I remember a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and then take the square root of what you come up with. I've never done that in my entire life. It's on the SATs, and after the SATs, I've never once used the Pythagorean theorem, which is the most important rule they teach you in geometry. I don't even know what a sine or cosine is anymore from trigonometry. And yes, I use basic statistics in my life, but that's because, when you do investing and things like that, you have to use a little bit of, or you play poker, you have to use a little bit of statistics. But most of basic statistics is just a matter of multiplication and division. So if there's 48 cards left in the deck, or if there's 50 cards left in the deck, and you need one of them to have a winning hand in poker, and one more card's going to be dealt, then you have a 2% chance of getting the winning card. And you can figure out if that's the right amount of odds to make your bet. But that's the only time in my life I have used basic statistics after high school. So if you're homeschooling your kids, just think about what you use in real life. Get them to do addition in their head. Get them to do subtraction in their head. Get them to do basic multiplication in their head. Like if you have to multiply 64 times 64, teach them how to roughly come up with the answer. I don't know what the answer is. It's probably around 4,100 or something. I have no clue. So just, or maybe 4,200. Teach them how to do basic math in their head, and that's the only thing they need to know. For reading, when I look at like English curriculums in high school, they are so stupid. Like, what 10th grade kid should read Beowulf or the Canterbury Tales? Like, what's it? The Miller's Wife in the Canterbury Tales is so raunchy or whatever. Like, who cares? The book was written in like 1290 or whatever. Beowulf, I don't know when that was written, in 800 AD, some stupid number like that. Why can't I read Harry Potter? And that's how you teach English. You can learn so much more if just give people Harry Potter to read. They'll learn the arc of the hero, which is primal. It's the primal story in every major religion in the past 10,000 years. It's the primal story in every major movie in the past 100 years. Give them Harry Potter. There's 1,000 different lessons to learn. There's lessons about, your hero has a call to action, rejects it. Then something happens where he has to take action, and he starts going on his adventure. He goes into a new world of adventure. So Harry Potter is taken to Hogwarts, a new world, and he meets enemies, he meets friends, he has bigger and bigger problems, his friends help them, finally he solves the biggest problem of all, and then he comes back to tell the tale. So Luke Skywalker is the perfect arc of the hero. And by the way, what's interesting, the arc of the hero is an important lesson to learn, and that's the only lesson in English literature, because you have to ask yourself in your own life, are you experiencing the arc of the hero? Are you the hero in your own life? So let's look at Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker, it starts off, he's looking out at the horizon like he wants to go for adventure, but his uncle's like, Luke, you have to keep Luke, you're a piece of white trash. You're gonna have to keep farming on the farm for whatever. I don't even know what they farm, dust, and Luke's just this like white trash kid who wants to hang out with his buddies on these speed racers. But then this junkie addict old man in a hood comes up to him and says, Luke, your daddy is the ruler of the galaxy. We have to kill him. And Luke's like, nah, I gotta farm. I gotta do farming with my uncle. And then, lo and behold, his aunt and uncle are decapitated. And Luke doesn't cry at all. He's like, okay, let's go. And so then they start meeting their friends. He meets Han Solo, and he meets Chewbacca, and, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he starts learning new skills. He learns the Force, and they take off, and more enemies, the Imperial troopers are chasing. So it's the beginning of the arc of the hero. Then he starts solving bigger and bigger problems. Like, how are they going to land on the Death Star? How are they going to destroy the Death Star? And how are they going to escape from the Death Star? And on and on and on. And then Luke comes back to tell the tale and begin the next arc of the hero. So you always have to ask yourself, A, is Luke just on this like weird DMT acid trip the entire time that some old man junkie named Ben Kenobi gives him? Or is it a real arc of the hero? And then you have to ask, where are you in the arc of the hero? Did you get a call to action? Maybe this stay at home, maybe this quarantine is your call to action, where you instead of just caving in to what the media is telling you to do and what the media is panicking you, you actually step up and figure out how you could be a hero and how you could enlist the help of your friends to solve bigger and bigger problems. Maybe you volunteer, maybe you spend time doing something, maybe you figure out what you want to do with your life when you get back to it. Like, you should be the hero in your story. This is really important. It's important. So someone asked about homeschooling, and I got into this, but again, math, I already said what you need to know. English literature, just read some fun book so you can learn the arc of the hero. Read Harry Potter, read Lord of the Rings, read, I don't know, The Fault in Their Stars by John Green. Read one of these great kids books that people love, that I love all these books. Now for history is an interesting one. What do you need to learn for history? Nobody really remembers their history. And like when was the Babylonian Empire? I don't even know that off the top of my head. You know, a lot of people don't even know. Here's a question I have. We all learned, many of us here from the U.S. learned U.S. history. We learned it from 1st grade through 12th grade. We learned that July 4th, 1776, we signed the Declaration of Independence. John Hancock signed the Declaration of Independence. Then what did we learn? We learned that George Washington was our first president. Guess what? He wasn't our first president until 1793. I can't even tell you what happened between 1776 and 1793. That's 17 years of the most important years in American history. I have no clue what happened. Were we still in the Revolutionary War? When did the Revolutionary War even end? Did we have a government then? Who was running the country? Like, I have no idea. So there are so many missing holes in our history. So here's what I would suggest. If you're homeschooling your kids, have them listen to one of two history podcasts. Either listen to Hardcore History by Dan Carlin, who's been on my podcast. He's super smart, and there's a lot of interesting things about him. The most interesting thing about Dan Carlin is that he's not a historian. When someone first told him, "Hey man, you know a lot about, you're interested in history, you should do a history podcast," he's like, I don't have a PhD in history. I'm not qualified. You don't have to have a PhD to be qualified for anything. So I used, just as an example, I used to go to law firms and give lectures about the law because lawyers don't even know the law. They learn law school law and bar exam law, but they don't know practical, real use cases of the law. So sometimes I'd go in and do consulting to law firms about the law. So Dan Carlin starts this podcast, Hardcore History. Now he doesn't have a PhD in history, he's not a quote unquote expert, he hasn't done any research, but he's one of the most, I would call him a historian, and he's probably the most famous historian in the world now. So if you're homeschooling your kid, listen to Dan Carlin's Hardcore History, or listen to the History Hyenas if you want a funnier version of history. If your kid's a little older and can handle a little more storytelling that might be a little more adult, listen to History Hyenas. I've been on the podcast. It's History Hyenas is done by Giannis Pappas and Chris DiStefano. Listen to that podcast. They cover everything from the Revolutionary War, Harriet Tubman, coronavirus, the stock market. They cover all sorts of stuff. So that's history. So we covered English, we covered history, we covered math, science. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know any biology and I don't know any chemistry. So I don't know. Maybe all you need to know is that when the Big Bang happened, hydrogen was formed, and then the next few seconds later, helium, lithium, carbon, and that's all you need to know about chemistry for the rest of your life, unless you're going to be a chemist or a doctor. For biology, maybe, I don't know, learn a little bit about animals. Who cares? You're never going to remember it. Learn about dogs. And that's it. What other subject is there? That's all you need to do for homeschooling. Homeschooling should, for physics, maybe learn a little bit about astronomy. Like, here's the other planets. Here's how the galaxy is. We're all rotating around each other. There's gravity. And that's physics. If I were homeschooling my kid right now, it would take me about 1 week to finish them through 1st through 12th grade in terms of what you're going to actually use later in life. You could learn the entire 1st through 12th grade in 1 week of focused homeschooling, and they'll remember it, and you never have to teach them again. Maybe you have to remind them like a few weeks later, and then a few weeks after that, just remind them a few times. Have for addition, practice giving, problem solving, addition problems over and over again, so they build that muscle in their head. But the most important thing is they need to be creative. My 2 daughters, when they were in 4th grade, 5th grade, every summer they would draw all summer. They would take out their drawing pads. They bought books about drawing. They would draw all these amazing like anime and manga characters. And then once they get back down to school, the love for art and drawing and creativity was just gone. And they had homework. Even in 7th grade, they had homework till 3 a.m. So unschool your kids by teaching them the minimum they need to know to survive in life. Math, the arc of the hero, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, percentages, basic statistics. That's math. Arc of the hero with whatever their favorite books are for English. History, I don't know, first learn basic U.S. history. Second, then just use little anecdotes in science that are fun. And then get them back to being creative. Write down 10 ideas a day, every day. They should be writing those ideas down. They should be creative. They should be drawing. They should be doing fun, creative projects. Oh, here's how I would homeschool kids as well. Teach them poker. Because if you teach them poker, they're going to learn psychology, because they're going to learn how to read other people. They're going to learn basic statistics, because the only way you're going to win in poker is if you know basic statistics. They're going to learn how to kill somebody, because you only win in poker or any game if you have that killer instinct. So you want to have them have that competitive killer instinct. They're going to learn competitive psychology so that even when they lose, they're not devastated by it. Like adults who don't learn games when they're young get devastated later on when they start to lose. But losing is a part of learning in any sport or any game. So if you want to homeschool your kids, number 1, teach them poker. Boom. That right there is science, math, psychology, gamesmanship, investing, money management. Poker is like a great game to learn. Why is seeing a therapist important for you? Great question also. By the way, Evan Carmichael, welcome to the house. Everybody should check out Evan. If you want to learn real lessons in life, check out Evan Carmichael's, EVAN Carmichael. Check out his YouTube channel. He's online right now on this live. Check out his YouTube channel because he always has great lessons, like 10 lessons you can learn from Elon Musk, 10 lessons from Sarah Blakely, 10 lessons from, Kobe Bryant or whatever. And they're really valuable. He puts a lot of time putting these great videos together. They're so valuable. He does a great job. So, again, check out, if you want homeschooling, have your kid watch all of Evan Carmichael's YouTube videos. There's one question here about side hustles, but first, why is seeing a therapist important to me? So, I had a traumatic situation happen in 2015, and I started seeing a therapist then because I didn't really understand what was happening. And, but then, here's how in the 5 years I've been seeing this therapist, not once has she asked me about my mother. I don't even know if she knows that I have a mother. Like, she has never asked me about my parents. Because here's how I use a therapist. I use a therapist almost as if she's a statistician. So let's say she's seen, in all her years of experience, she's seen this particular thing happen in a relationship 1,000 times. So I'll describe something, and I'm sure she's already seen it 1,000 times, and she'll tell me that on average, the people who seem to survive this moment the best do this. So it's almost like she's being a statistician, and that's how I benefit from therapy. If I say to her, like, oh, I'm not so sure how to have this difficult conversation with someone, like maybe a friend of mine did something that bothered me, and I don't know how to bring it up or talk about it. She has seen that situation 1,000 times, so she will tell me, on average, this is how people deal with it, and it works out. So that's how I use therapy. And she's always gives me insights that I don't even think she realizes I totally plagiarize, and I write about them. So for instance, I've written about this concept that she's told me a dozen times, and I have never once given her credit for it. She once told me that happiness is reality over expectations. So reality divided by expectations. So let's say you're 400 pounds and you're very unhappy because you're 400 pounds. Well, are you unhappy because you're 400 pounds, or are you unhappy because the reality is you're 400 pounds, but your expectation is very high, that you should only be, 150 pounds. So your expectations are very high for yourself, but the reality is here. So your reality over expectations is very low. So your happiness is very low. So if you change your expectations to be lower, doesn't mean you change your goals or your direction in life to be lower. But if you say, okay, look, I'm 400 pounds. That's the reality right now. I can't change it today, but I can start to eat better. I'm going to set a little goal for myself that today I'm going to try to understand my weight loss condition a little bit, my weight condition a little bit more. I'm going to try to eat a little bit healthier. Now your expectations are much lower. They're easier to meet, and you might end up being much happier. So that's a formula I learned in therapy. Happiness equals reality over expectations. And the biggest benefit to me is I've written about that a lot of times, and it's helped me in life. So, okay, this is a good idea. Someone's asking, what is a practical guide to creating courses? So let's say I was going to make an online course. First off, this is a great way to make money from home, and it's a great way to plan making money even right now. I'm not recommending everybody do an online course. This is just one way to make a good amount of money. I talked about it a little yesterday or the day before. One friend of mine has a course called The Jesus Diet, What Would Jesus Eat? And it's basically a course about the Mediterranean diet, plus it's filled with, if you're a Christian, a lot of religious, inspirational stuff. And it's a good little course. And my friend lives in Colombia, which is cheap, and he makes he lives in a nice penthouse apartment, and over the years he's made hundreds of thousands of dollars on this course. So courses could be a good way to make a living. So let me tell you the components of every business on the planet. And I think I've talked about this before, but I'm going to apply it to creating an online course is a knowledge business. It's a business based on knowledge that you have. So every business has 3 components. Every business on the planet has 3 components. Somebody has too much of something. Let's call it X. Someone has too much of X. Another group of people has too little of X. And there's some platform in the middle that helps the people who need more X get more X from this. So Uber is a great example. Uber, there are people with excess empty cars there are people with excess empty seats while they're driving around. Then on the other side, there are people who want access to those empty seats so they can get from point A to point B. And Uber is the platform in the middle that helps these people find these people and takes care of their transactions and the security, and nobody gets ripped off, and takes care of customer complaints and takes care of searching and so on, discovery. So again, every business in the world, there's a group that have excess of something, there's a group of people who want that something, and there's a platform in the middle. So think of an online course. you might have excess knowledge about investing. Now, there's another group of people who want to learn how to invest. So they want to have access to your excess knowledge. And then an online course is what you create to give them that excess knowledge. And so that becomes a business. It's an online course business. So think of businesses in terms of those three parts always. So now now that means though, the online course is not only the online course, but you also have to accept credit cards. It's the whole platform. You have to accept credit cards. You have to have a way to email everybody who's taking your course. You have to handle customer complaints. You have to be able to charge different prices depending on what package these people get. So you have to have a platform in the middle. So let's just start off with the first part. How do you create an online course? So if I was going to create an online course about investing, I would say, okay, first part is, what does it mean to invest? What can you invest in? Well, so that would be just an intro. You can invest in stocks. Here's how. You can invest in real estate. Here's how. You can invest in, you can lend people money. That's a form of investment. There's all sorts of different types of investment. And then I can say, okay, well, here's some introductory books to read. Read this biography of Warren Buffett. Read this book, Market Wizards by Jack Schwager. Read Bernard Baruch's autobiography. Read Reminiscences of a Stock Market Operator. And then I'll have a whole bunch of other books to read. Then I'll have maybe a class on what is value investing, what is growth investing, what is arbitrage, what is what I call piggyback investing, where you look at great investors' investments and you just follow them into investing. What is options investing? What are different strategies for options investing? What are good arbitrage strategies that work? What's spin-off investing? So I could come up with 20 different titles of different sections of the course. Each section is another lesson in my online course. And then what I'll do is, the way I do it is, I'll write down all the different sections of my course, all the different lessons in my course on my waiter's pad. Maybe I'll have 10 lessons or 20 lessons. Then I'll take each course like value investing. So what am I going to teach in the value investing lesson? Well, I'll make my list of 10 again. I'll teach about Benjamin Graham. I'll teach about, tulip mania and why that's the opposite of value investing. I'll teach about Warren Buffett. How does Warren Buffett invest? Why is he called a value investor? I'll teach about other value investing strategies. I'll go through the history of value investing. I'll analyze companies now. These are good value investments right now. And so I make a list of 10 for each lesson. And now I've got a list of 10, which are all the lessons of the course. Then I have, for each lesson, I have the list of 10 things I want to teach in that lesson. And then I start figuring out, am I going to do this on video? Am I going to do this on blogs or articles? And now I'll sign up with, there are websites out there like teachable.com where you can sign up and you can use their platform to accept credit cards, handle customer service, handle email lists, and so on. One good strategy, if you want to start an online course, one good strategy is to start writing for free for publications or online sites that specialize in your interest. So if you want to teach a course on dog breeding, because you know a lot about dog breeding, start writing articles for free on the top populated websites about dog breeding, and then start doing like Q&As on Twitter about dog breeding, and say, hey, I'm going to put all of this information out on my email list every day and get people to sign up for your email list for free. It should be for free. And every day for free, send out your latest thoughts on dog breeding. Or in my case, it would be investing or writing or creativity or whatever. And use MailChimp to set up your email list. And now you have an email list. Your email list is your most valuable asset. Even though it's free, and even though you never charge for your email to be on your email list, and you're constantly giving away valuable information and other things for free on your email list is your most valuable asset, because some subset of the members of your email list are you going to buy your more expensive, more valuable course that you teach. It might only be 3% of your email list will buy your course, But if your course is truly valuable as you think it is, you'll be able to charge 3% of the people will pay. And trust me, you will make a living from doing an online course or an online newsletter. You can either make a living or you can get rich. The other thing you can do is, and my friend John Lee Dumas does this very well. John Lee Dumas has a great podcast called Entrepreneurs on Fire. And he, of course, the podcast is free. But then for people who want to learn more about podcasting, he has a Facebook group called Podcasters Paradise. And I don't know I think it costs $1,000 to join or $2,000 to join. But everybody, all these podcasters are in the group and they're exchanging information. Oh, what kind of mic do you have? What kind of video camera do you use? Where do you distribute? How do you get advertisers? And so all these people exchange information. John Lee Dumas is the administrator of this group. He charges to join. If he's got 1,000 members a year joining, he's making millions of dollars. So that's another way to kind of use. Again, I always think in terms of what I called yesterday the spoken wheel approach. You have one thing you're really good at that you want to teach, but there's various spokes: online course, private Facebook group, public speaking, books, podcast with advertising, Patreon. There's all sorts of ways to make money, but with your core idea, take Matthew Berry. So Matthew Berry, I don't know if you know who he is. He's the ESPN. Well, I'll tell you who he is. He was a Hollywood screenwriter. He was writing movies for Hollywood, and he hated it. He told me he was working on Crocodile Dundee 3, and I think he just walked out of the room. He was so disgusted with a rewrite that they wanted, and he quit. And he had to start from scratch. He went broke. He had to start from scratch. He was interested in sports, and specifically fantasy sports. So he started writing blog posts about fantasy sports for $100 a post. He was making millions writing screenplays for movies before, but he went broke. Now he was back to making $100 a blog post on fantasy sports. But he had all that skill in writing, and he had a lot of knowledge. He was obsessed with fantasy sports, so he had a lot of knowledge. Talent sex. His skills in writing made him the best writer on the planet about fantasy sports. So he built up an entire company that was about fantasy sports. I think ESPN acquired the company, and he became an anchor, the only fantasy sports anchor in the world. He's the fantasy sports anchor at ESPN. So again, he was at the center of his wheel was fantasy sports. But then he had blogs. He had a company with higher quality information. Now he's a sports anchor for ESPN. Now maybe he's making an online game about or an online exchange about fantasy sports, or maybe he does public speaking, or he could do a podcast and sell advertising, or he can have a 4-page newsletter with his latest fantasy sports tips. So once you have that wheel, there's many spokes you can use to monetize the wheel. You can make an online course about how to pick the best picks for fantasy sports, or an online newsletter, whatever. So all this stuff is critical. This way of thinking. So I just described the 3 parts of every business model. Then I described how to create an online course. And it starts with writing free or cheap articles for major sites, building an email list, then using your handy waiter's pad to outline the course and then outline each lesson in the course. Then using a platform like Teachable to handle all the credit cards and marketing and so on for your course. And then you use your email list, which you've built up over years, to market your course to the readers who already know you and like your work. No one's going to sign up for your email list if they don't like your work. So these are the perfect customers already for your course. I started my email list in 2012 or 2011, and I didn't even once monetize it until 2015. But it works. Your email list is valuable. You could build an entire company. Craigslist started off as an email list. Angie's List started off as an email list. These are either billion-dollar companies or multiple $100 million companies, based off of lists, email lists. So, and again, the way to start an email list is use all social media platforms. So when I was building my email list, I was writing a blog post every day.